Hi everyone, Vanman here. In the previous video, I beat Pokemon Red and Blue with by far the worst Pokemon I've ever played, Ditto, ranking in the F tier for Pokemon solo challenges in Gen 1. So to give myself a bit of a reprieve from that grueling experience, today's run will feature a Pokemon that is not only far stronger than Ditto, but my best hunch tells me is one of the strongest Pokemon in Gen 1, Pinsir. Now, as far as Gen 1 solo runs are concerned, Pinsir is definitely an interesting one. For starters, Pinsir is a bug-type Pokemon that learns 0 bug-type moves either by level up or by TM. And not only that, its offensive type coverage is almost non-existent, with Submission being its only move capable of dealing super effective damage. However, what Pinsir lacks in type diversity it makes up for with excellent stats, boasting a respectable 85 speed and a monstrous 125 attack, tied with Gyarados for the 6th highest attack in the entire game. So all in all, it seems that for this run, Pinsir's battle strategy will be pretty straightforward. Hit hard and fast for massive damage, and don't give the opponent an opportunity to strike back. The comprehensive rule set for this run is in the description below, but in summary, I can only use Pinsir in battle with no battle items, I can't use any glitches or RNG manipulation, I must save before boss battles and then reset if I lose, and finally, Pinsir's placement in the tier ranking will be determined by the real-world time spent completing the game while playing at 4 times speed. As a challenge for the viewer, feel free to comment down below your prediction for Pinsir's time of completion, then after the video is over, come back and edit your comment to describe how accurate your prediction was. And if you do, I'll feature it in the next video. Here are the comments for the Ditto run. Shout out to Pinsir for the second most accurate prediction, and shout out to Skipatronic for the most accurate. Also, in addition to commenting, if you enjoy what I do and want to help me continue to provide you with quality Pokemon content, please give the video a like, and subscribe and ring the bell so you're always up to date on the newest videos. And consider becoming a patron on Patreon, link in the description. Thank you so much for your support. We begin the run by altering the game to replace the Squirtle starter with Pinsir, causing the rival to choose Bulbasaur. And given that Pinsir is a Beetle, upon acquiring Pinsir, I named it Paul as an homage to Paul McCartney of the Beatles. In the first rival battle, Bulbasaur doesn't stand a chance against Pinsir's massive attack stat, and we easily take it down in a few turns by spamming Vice Grip, a 55 power normal move that's not just Pinsir's only starting move, but also Pinsir's only move of any kind until level 25. Then after the rival battle, as we trek across Route 1 to Viridian Forest, we go ahead and knock out all the wild encounters for experience, considering that, as impressive as Pinsir's attack stat is, it still won't be enough to defeat Brock's Rock-type Pokemon without at least a little bit of training. So because of that, we also sweep through all the optional bug catchers in Viridian Forest, then upon arriving in Pewter City, for yet more experience we take on the junior trainer in the Pewter Gym, who we would have defeated on the first attempt, if not for Sandshrew using just enough sand attacks to prevent us from knocking it out. But realistically, it's actually a good thing that we lost that fight, because now we can farm that experience that the Diglett gave us in the first attempt, and then come back and defeat him on the second attempt. However, you may notice that even after all those battles, that still only leaves Paul at a mere level 9, whereas most other Pokemon would be at a higher level by now. Well, that's because in the games, not all Pokemon level up at the same rate, requiring variable amounts of experience to graduate from one level to the next. And it turns out that unfortunately Pinsir is in the slowest experience group of all, named, fittingly enough, the slow experience group. So because of that, we have to spend even more time training against wild Pokemon in Viridian Forest than usual in preparation for Brock, putting us at just over 7 minutes before facing Brock at level 12. Now, in this battle, our hope is that Geodude will use lots of defense curls to avoid us taking damage from its tackles, and that we will land at least a couple critical hits to get past the defense curls, considering that in Gen 1 critical hits bypass stat modifications. And fortunately here, Geodude does use more defense curls than tackles, and we even managed to land 2 critical hits before Geodude goes down. But due to our low level, Geodude still manages to get us down to low orange health going into Onix. Then against Onix, it's abundantly clear that this fight is not winnable at level 12, because each attack with Vice Grip is only doing a blip, whereas Onix's Bite is plenty to knock us out. So we then have to spend another 5 minutes training in Viridian Forest up to level 14, where we try Brock again. Well, this time you can see that our Vice Grip is dealing quite a bit more damage to Geodude, allowing us to go into Onix at high green health this time. So then against Onix, although it is definitely possible to win via Onix spamming Screech and or missing with Tackle over and over again, more often than not, Onix's Bite will be enough to get the job done, considering that our Vice Grip still isn't dealing enough damage to take it out fast enough, and that's exactly what happens here. However, we did manage to bring Onix down to red health just now, so instead of training any further, I decided to try Brock a couple more times. But every time we were still brought to the same fate with us going into Onix in the green, followed by us not being able to take down the Onix fast enough to withstand the retaliation from Bide. So because of that, we spend yet another 3 minutes training up to level 15 and then try again. Well, this time that extra level allows Vice Grip to deal way more damage to Geodude, allowing us to take it out on only 7 hits. Then Onix Onix and Paul trade tackles for Vice Grips over and over again, after which Onix goes for Bide. Then 3 Vice Grips later, Onix survives on a sliver of red health, then unleashes energy and we survive on a sliver of red health, allowing one more Vice Grip to knock out the Onix and win us the Boulder Badge. Wow, talk about neck and neck. Then after defeating Brock, the next portion of the game is trivially easy for Pinsir, simply as a result of our prior overleveling in preparation for Brock, and also as a result of Pinsir's massive attack stat, allowing us to one-shot most everything that comes our way, even in spite of Vice Grip's lackluster power and typing. In Mount Moon, we also face against just a couple non-mandatory trainers to counteract Pinsir's slow experience group as we discussed before, in addition to knocking out most of the wild encounters, simply because outspeeding and one-shotting the wild encounters is just as fast as running from them anyway, so in general you may as well just gain the experience since it doesn't cost any extra time to do so. So then, after completing our trek through Mount Moon, that leaves us arriving in Cerulean City at just under 22 minutes, at which point we face Rival 2 at level 19, and here there's really only one way to lose this fight, which is for Pidgeotto to use so many sand attacks that we miss all of our Vice Grips and allow the enemy Pokemon to chip us down. But fortunately in this battle, Pidgeotto just used a single sand attack, so although throughout the fight we do miss a few times, our stats are so high in comparison to the opponent that we're never in any danger of fainting and we sweep the team without a problem. Then, as you might imagine, Nugget Bridge leading to Bill's house is also not a concern because Vice Grip one-shots most everything in sight, and we make it to Misty in very short order. In the battle against Misty, her opening Staryu leads with Water Gun, after which Vice Grip brings it into yellow, and then Tackle brings us to high green health before another Vice Grip takes it out. Then against Starmie, it opens with Water Gun to bring us to about half, then a critical hit Vice Grip brings Starmie to about half, then Tackle from Starmie does almost nothing, then since the next Vice Grip is not a crit, it comes just shy of knocking out the Starmie, then a devastating Bubble Beam brings us to a mere 7 health. But by then it's too late, and our final Vice Grip gets the job done and wins us the Cascade Badge. And although I didn't notice this at the time, upon reviewing the footage, I find it fascinating that Staryu has 2 moves, Tackle and Water Gun, and Staryu used each of its moves exactly once each, and Starmie has 3 moves, Tackle, Water Gun, and Bubble Beam, and Starmie used each of its moves exactly once each. Additionally, we attacked a total of 5 times in that fight, and landed a critical hit once, which is exactly what you would expect given our 17% critical hit rate. So because of all that, you could reasonably argue that that fight was the most average fight that could possibly have taken place, and we still won. So I definitely think we were justified in our victory in that scenario. But regardless, after Misty we then make our way to the SSN, wherein lies the TM for the principal attacking move that Paul will use for the remainder of the playthrough, Body Slam, an 85 power, 100% accurate normal move with a 30% chance to induce paralysis, which is all in all a very welcome addition to Pinsir's arsenal given its enormous attack stat, even in spite of the absence of the same type attack bonus. So then after acquiring Body Slam, we make quick work of Rival 3 who can't really do anything to stop us, considering that his Pokemon are so slow and frail by comparison, followed immediately by Lieutenant Surge who was in the same boat as the rival, winning us the Thunder Badge. Then after defeating Surge, we dig back to Cerulean City and head east through Route 9 and Rock Tunnel, which is again a complete triviality with one exception, the infamous self-destructing hiker, so called because his 3 Pokemon, the 2 Geodudes and a Graveler, all know self-destruct, which as you probably guessed is not the easiest for a Pokemon with less than ideal defense such as Pinsir to get past. Well, against the first Geodude, I wasn't sure if Body Slam or Seismic Toss, which we learned by level up at level 25, would deal more damage, so we lead with Body Slam which does about a third, followed by Seismic Toss which does about half. Then Geodude uses self-destruct to take itself out and leave us at about 2/3 health. Well, this is not good news, because that means that we will not survive if both the other Pokemon use self-destruct as well. Well, against the next Geodude, we go for Seismic Toss to deal about half, but then it too takes itself out with a self-destruct. Okay, we're on the ropes now. We can still win, but that requires us to avoid one more self-destruct from Graveler. Well, against Graveler, Seismic Toss does just under half, meaning it will be a 3-shot, after which Graveler goes for Rock Throw to bring us into red, followed by a Defense Curl before going down to one final Seismic Toss. Well, talk about a nail biter, but at least we did manage to win that one on the first attempt. So then after defeating the hiker and making our way out of the cave all the way to Celadon City, we complete our usual shopping errands, pick up the HM for Fly, then under normal circumstances we would fly back to Lavender Town to face Rival 4, but here I think the best option is actually to head to the Celadon Gym to do a little bit more training, simply because we have to find the most efficient way to compensate for Pinsir's slow experience group, and lucky for us, knocking out gym trainers in rapid succession is a great method for doing just that. So we use Body Slam to sweep through the trainers, after which we take on Erica at level 30. And fortunately for us, Erica's Pokemon don't really have any good options for dealing with Pinsir, given its type resistance to grass type attacks. To start, we outspeed and two-shot Victreebel with Body Slam, during which time Victreebel poisons us with Poison Powder. Then Tangela is two-shot after missing its bind, and then Vileplume comes just shy of being two-shot, after which Erica uses a Super Potion. And although during this process we sustain pretty heavy damage from poison coupled with Vileplume's Petal Dance, it's still nowhere near enough, and only a couple turns later Vileplume goes down, winning us the Rainbow Badge. Then after defeating Erica, we head to Lavender Town to face Rival 4, and just like before, the only way to lose this fight is to miss Body Slam due to Pidgeotto's Sand Attack. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what happens, because our initial Body Slam brings Pidgeotto down to red, after which it lands 2 Sand Attacks before going down. Then against Gyarados we miss 3 Body Slams in a row, allowing Gyarados to chip us down to red health. And then even though the next Body Slam brings Gyarados down to red as well, by then it's too late and we have to reset. But then luckily in the next attempt, we manage to one-shot Pidgeotto thanks to a critical hit, thereby avoiding Sand Attack, allowing us to two-shot Gyarados, one-shot Growlithe and Kadabra, and then two-shot Ivysaur without breaking a sweat. Then, as we make our way to the top floor of the tower, we have to make our way through several channelers with a handful of Ghost-type Pokemon, and although none of them present any real challenge, it is worth noting here that we can't use Body Slam to knock them out due to their immunity to normal-type attacks. So because of that, we have to switch to Seismic Toss, which is a set damage move that deals damage equal to the user's level. And like all set damage moves, it ignores type immunity and therefore allows us to get past the channelers no problem. Then up next, we pick up all the very welcome vitamins lying around Lavender Tower, Safari Zone, and Silphco, and while at Silphco we also pick up the TM for one of the best stat boosting moves in the game, Swords Dance, which is a move that raises the user's attack by 2 stages, thus vastly enhancing Pinsir's sweeping capabilities. Then up next, again to make up for Pinsir's slow experience group, we actually take a detour to the Fuchsia Gym to sweep through the gym trainers there, but we don't take on Koga just yet because I figured at this point Rival 5 would actually be easier. So we then fly back to Silphco to attempt the fight against him. And interestingly, this fight turns out to be far less of a challenge than Rival 4, even in spite of the massive level gap between the two teams of Pokemon, simply because Rival 5 has what's called good AI, meaning that he will always select moves that are super effective against the opponent if one exists, which in this case means that his opening Pidgeot will always spam Wing Attack because it's super effective against Pinsir's bug typing, therefore taking Sand Attack completely off the table and allowing us to set up our Swords Dance with impunity. Then after the setup is complete, we sweep with Body Slam, which unfortunately doesn't one-shot Pidgeot thanks to a critical hit which ignores the Swords Dance, but Pidgeot still goes down in the next turn, and then just to prove how powerful Swords Dance really is, even Gyarados with its massive defense stat is one-shot, as is Growlithe. Then Alakazam outspeeds and hits us with Confusion, but it doesn't matter because it too goes down in the next turn, after which we outspeed and one-shot Venusaur as well for the first attempt victory. Then after completing the Silphco mission, the doors to the Saffron Gym are unlocked, but at this point I think it's still correct to face Koga first. After all, defeating Koga will give us a much needed badge boost to our speed, as well as the ability to use Surf in the overworld outside of battle, allowing us to head to Cinnabar Island to raid the Pokemon Mansion of even more vitamins. Yeah, I'm really scared of Sabrina in this run if you couldn't tell. Looking ahead to that fight, I want to be as prepared for her as possible. So anyway, against Koga, our plan is exactly the same as it was for Rival 5, which is to set up with Swords Dance and then sweep with Body Slam, with the exception that Koffing could possibly use Smokescreen to prevent us from landing our attacks, causing a reset. Well, in that fight, fortunately Koffing just goes for an X attack into Sludge, which we tank at about half health despite it being super effective. Then after the Swords Dance setup is complete, we begin the sweep, during which Koffing is one-shot, as is Muck in the next Koffing. Then we get a critical hit on Weezing to deal about half, but then the Body Slam also paralyzes Weezing, after which Weezing becomes fully paralyzed, and we knock it out on the next turn, winning us the Soul Badge. So now that the Soul Badge grants us the ability to use Surf, we make our way down to Cinnabar Island, where we raid the Pokemon Mansion of its precious vitamins, then fly back to the Saffron Gym, where we train up yet again against all the Psychics, then face against Sabrina herself. And you guessed it, the plan here is exactly the same as it was for Koga. Set up Swords Dance and then use Body Slam to sweep. So, let's see how that goes. Well, to start, we manage to outspeed the Kadabra and use Swords Dance, after which Kadabra uses Psybeam to deal about a third. But then after our next Swords Dance, the next Psybeam crits to bring us to a mere 8 health. So, it looks like it's now or never. Because we're at such low health, we have no choice but to begin the sweep. So, we use Body Slam and Kadabra goes down. Then Mr. Mime goes down. Then Venomoth goes down. And do we outspeed the Alakazam? Yes, we do, and Alakazam goes down, winning us the Marsh Badge. Wow, Pinsir is just an absolute powerhouse in this run. He is wrecking these boss fights like they're nothing. Well done. So then after Sabrina, the next boss fight to contend with is Blaine, and to prepare for this fight we again make use of the gym trainers to level up. However, before I show you the gym battle, we first need to take a moment to discuss an important feature of the Gen 1 games that many of you may already be familiar with, the badge boost glitch, and it goes like this. In the Gen 1 games, certain badges grant a permanent boost to a particular stat for every Pokemon in your party. For example, earning the Thunder badge boosts the defense stat by 12.5%. That's what's supposed to happen. However, the glitch aspect is that anytime your stats are modified, that badge boost is reapplied, such that in that battle against Koga, for example, when we used Swords Dance to modify Paul's attack stat, Paul got yet another 12.5% boost to its defense on top of what was already supposed to be there. And in that case, it actually happened twice because we used 2 Swords Dance, which is why we took so little damage from the super effective Sludge attack, and it's also why we were able to outspeed Sabrina's Alakazam, because Swords Dance reapplied the speed boost that we got from the Soul badge. However, one quirk of the badge boost glitch is that it goes away if you level up during the battle. So why am I bringing this up now, you ask? Well, during all this training against the Cinnabar gym trainers, Paul leveled up to level 43 to learn the move Harden, which raises the user's defense by 1 stage. However, that's not all it does, because in the Blaine battle it can also allow us to abuse the badge boost glitch to outspeed his Rapidash and Arcanine. Additionally, while training in the gym, we were also very careful to fight the exact number of trainers necessary to avoid leveling up mid-fight, specifically so that we can maintain the badge boost glitch for the entire battle like I mentioned before. So, that's our strategy anyway, let's see how it pans out. Well, to start, Blaine opens with Growlithe, who is actually not too incredibly threatening despite Pinsir's weakness to fire-type attacks. First, we open with a Swords Dance, but then something terrible happens in that Growlithe uses Ember, which inflicts a burn, therefore cutting our attack stat in half. Then we use 2 more Swords Dance, during which time we continue to take burn damage, and Blaine uses not 1 but 2 full health super potions. And yes, Blaine, unlike any other trainer in the game, has very quirky AI that allows him and only him to do that. So that's extremely fortunate for us, but then after we use all 3 Swords Dance, we use a couple Hardens to badge boost our attack and speed even further, while Growlithe brings us to red health with 2 more Embers. Alright, just like in the battle against Sabrina, we can't afford any more setup, so it's now or never and we begin the sweep. So first, Growlithe is outsped in one shot, as is Ponyta. Then to demonstrate the power of the badge boost, we outspeed the Pokemon with the words Rapid and Dash in its name to one-shot it. And then finally, to demonstrate the power of Swords Dance, we managed to spite even the extreme attack drop from Burn and one-shot Arcanine as well, winning us the Volcano badge. And then finally, to round out all 8 gyms in the Pokemon League, we head over to the Viridian Gym, knock out only the mandatory trainers there, and then take on Giovanni, who you might suspect would give us at least a little trouble since 2 of his Pokemon resist our normal type attacks. But it turns out the fight is actually completely trivial because Giovanni's opening Rhyhorn has such weak attacks that it gives us free reign to set up as many Swords Dance and Hardens as we please. So in the battle, we do just that and set up the maximum number of Hardens followed by Swords Dance, while Rhyhorn deals a measly 9 damage the entire time. Then to demonstrate how strong Rhyhorn's defense is, even with all those boosts to our attack, Body Slam still only brings it to yellow. But that's inconsequential because the next Body Slam still gets the job done, no worries there. Then unfortunately we do level up going into the Dugtrio, thereby negating our badge boost, but unlike with Blaine, there's really nothing to worry about because we still manage to outspeed and one-shot Dugtrio, followed by Nidoqueen. Then against Nidoking, we do get a critical hit which ignores our attack buffs, so it survives in the red and then retaliates with a Poison Sting that does virtually nothing before going down in the next turn. And then finally Swords Dance allows Body Slam to penetrate Rhydon's massive defense to take it down in 3 hits as well, winning us the Earth badge. So now, after all that, as well as Pinsir has performed so far with the exception of Brock, that last battle still only puts us at a mere level 45 going into the last 6 battles of the run, even in spite of all the extra training that we did in the Celadon, Fuchsia, Saffron, and Cinnabar gyms, which is frankly staggering. Pinsir is, after all, the first Pokemon in the slow experience group that I've played on this channel. And believe me, at this point I was really starting to feel that, because throughout this entire run, we've had to waste so much extra time training just to level up at a rate that for other Pokemon would feel so much more natural and organic. I'm just really hoping at this point that Pinsir's strong stats and setup moves will make up for its lower level going into the Elite Four. So anyway, going into Rival 6, I go ahead and feed Paul a single rare candy to level 46 to prevent the mid-battle level up which would negate our badge boost otherwise. And we go into this fight with the exact same strategy as with Rival 5, in the sense that Pidgeot's good AI will always spam Wing Attack, allowing us to spam Harden not only to mitigate the Wing Attacks, but also badge boost our attack and speed, followed by 3 Swords Dance to boost our attack and speed even further. Then once the setup setup is complete, like always, we begin the sweep and Pidgeot goes down, then Rhyhorn survives in the red and goes down on the next turn, then Gyarados goes down, as does Alakazam, and then finally Venusaur. Well, I'll say this about Pinsir. In spite of wasting all that extra time training, at least we're not wasting any time with multiple attempts in the boss fights. With the exception of the several Brock resets due to being too underleveled, and the one Rival 4 reset because of Sand Attack, every boss battle so far has felt like it wasn't even close for Pinsir. So, it looks like there's nothing left to do now besides to see if that remains true heading into the Elite Four, starting with Lorelei. Well, against Lorelei's opening Dewgong, we have no issue setting up our Hardens and our Swords Dance, because Dewgong for some reason loves to spam Growl and Rest, and in fact only hits us with a single Aurora Beam before going down. But still, I don't think that mattered much because our badge boost would have allowed us to tank the hits, even if Dewgong had attacked more times than that. Then against Cloyster, just like Rhyhorn and Rhydon from before, its massive defense allows it to survive Body Slam, after which it unfortunately bypasses all our badge boost with a devastating critical hit Clamp to knock us out. The next attempt, however, goes much more smoothly because we again set up against Dewgong without a hitch. Then Cloyster again survives Body Slam, but this time instead of retaliating, Lorelei uses a Super Potion, and then Cloyster faints in the next turn. Then Slowbro takes a full 3 hits to knock out, but its attacks are so weak that it doesn't matter and we go into Jinx and Yellow Health. And unfortunately here we do level up to negate our badge boost, but it doesn't matter because Jinx and Lapras are both slow enough that we still outspeed and one-shot them for the win. And now as we head to face Agatha, not since the Channelers in Pokemon Tower have we gone into this fight with a different strategy than our usual game plan of badge boosting followed by Body Slam, because Agatha's Ghost-type Pokemon are immune to Body Slam, and we therefore have to rely solely on Seismic Toss to inflict damage. So prior to the fight, I feed all but 2 of my rare candies to Paul to prevent the mid-battle level-ups against both Lance and the champion, and we go in at level 55. So now, will our departure from our usual combat strategy result in an insurmountable roadblock, or is Seismic Toss enough to get the job done? Let's see. Well, first, Agatha leads with Gengar, who we do outspeed and deal about a third with Seismic Toss, after which Gengar retaliates with Nightshade, which is just the Ghost-type version of Seismic Toss. Then we use Seismic Toss, and Agatha uses a Super Potion. Then we use Seismic Toss, then Agatha uses a Super Potion. Then after the next Seismic Toss, Gengar goes for Confuse Ray, and even though we do eventually land one last Seismic Toss to take out the Gengar, a combination of Confusion damage and Nightshade leaves us at only a sliver going into Golbat. Well, this is not looking good. Against Golbat, Body Slam does about half and also paralyzes, and then Golbat is trapped in paralysis. Alright, do we have a shot here? Well, the next Body Slam leaves Golbat hanging on by a thread, after which Golbat powers through the paralysis and knocks us out with a super effective wing attack. Then in the next attempt, I came up with the idea of setting up Swords Dance against Gengar, because even though Swords Dance doesn't do anything against Gengar, it could help prepare for both Golbat and Arbok. However, I soon realized the error of my ways in doing that, because Gengar then opens with Confuse Ray, and Confusion damage is calculated based on the user's base attack and defense, so therefore Confusion damage is actually far greater after using Swords Dance than before. So because of that, we continue setting up with Harden instead in order to still get the badge boost, but hopefully also mitigate the Confusion damage. But then yet more Confusion damage brings us down to about a quarter going into Golbat, who was then one-shot thanks to our prior setup, but then Haunter promptly knocks us out with Nightshade. So then in the third attempt, we open by setting up with Harden this time, and after a long exchange we take out Gengar with low green health remaining for Golbat. However, it turns out that we didn't set up quite enough badge boosts, because Golbat survives Body Slam in the yellow, allowing it to retaliate with a wing attack which doesn't do much thanks to Harden, and then Golbat goes down in the next turn. Then we Seismic Toss Haunter, who then switches out for Arbok, who is then 2-shot while it uses a Screech to badge boost us even further. Then we Seismic Toss Haunter, who switches out for Gengar. Well, it looks like Haunter really doesn't want to stay in battle today. So then, after we Seismic Toss Gengar, it confuses us with Confuse Ray, and after we hit ourselves in confusion one time, we snap out of it and go for another Seismic Toss, after which Gengar uses Toxic. But at this point, the poison infliction from Toxic doesn't matter at all, because in Gen 1 the Pokemon doesn't take poison damage if it knocks out the opponent in the same turn, which is exactly what happens, because one more Seismic Toss takes care of both the Gengar and the Haunter, meaning that we've gotten past Agatha on only the third attempt. And now as we head to face Lance, we're returning back to our usual strategy of boosting our stats and then sweeping, so again we feed another rare candy to prevent the mid-battle level up, and we go in at level 56. To begin against Gyarados, we open by setting up 5 Hardens, during which Gyarados uses a Hyper Beam, which doesn't do much thanks to the Hardens, followed by Dragon Rage. Then while we set up for 3 Swords Dance, Gyarados goes for a couple Leers to drop our defense, but also badge boost our attack even further. So now after 3 Swords Dance and 7 total badge boosts, I think we're finally ready to sweep. So we Body Slam Gyarados and Gyarados goes down, as does the first Dragonair, as does the second. Then Aerodactyl manages to survive Body Slam on a Sliver thanks to its rock typing to provide a type resistance, after which Lance heals Aerodactyl back to full with a Hyper Potion. But then yet another Body Slam brings it to the same fate, after which Aerodactyl uses a weak bite and then goes down on the next turn. Then against Dragonite, Body Slam unfortunately crits, but fortunately paralyzes. Alright, so now the only way to lose would be for Dragonite to break through the paralysis, and use an attacking move, and to get a critical hit to bypass our raised defense from Harden. Well, Dragonite does indeed break through the paralysis, but it goes for a non-attacking move in the form of agility, and one final body slam finishes it off. So now, moving on to the champion, I don't think I need to tell you what our strategy is, let's just see if it's enough to take the victory. Against Pidgeot, we open by spamming Harden not only to badge boost, but also to mitigate its super effective attacking moves. But then, it begins glowing for Sky Attack, and I cross my fingers. Will it one-shot? Well, Sky Attack lands, and thanks to a critical hit to bypass our raised defense, the super effective flying type move is more than enough to knock us out. So then in the next attempt, we use Harden, then Pidgeot begins glowing for Sky Attack. Then we use Harden, and then Sky Attack lands and does about a third. Then we use Harden, and it begins glowing again. Then we use Harden, and then Sky Attack lands to bring us into yellow. Then we use Harden, then Pidgeot begins glowing yet again. Then we use Harden one last time, and then Sky Attack lands to bring us into red. Then we use Swords Dance, and Pidgeot uses Wing Attack, which does very little. Then we use Swords Dance, and then Pidgeot begins glowing yet again. Alright, it's now or never. We can't afford another Swords Dance and risk Sky Attack knocking us out. So we use Body Slam and it one-shots Pidgeot. Then out comes Alakazam. We use Body Slam and it one-shots. Then out comes Rhydon. We use Body Slam, which deals about a third. Then it uses Horn Drill, which misses. Then we use Body Slam to bring it into yellow. Then it uses Leer, and then one final Body Slam finishes it off. Then out comes Gyarados. We use Body Slam and it one-shots. Then out comes Arcanine. We use Body Slam and it one-shots. Then finally, out comes Venusaur. We use Body Slam and, yes, that's right, it one-shots yet again, making us champion of the Pokemon League. Results. Pinsir finished the game in 4 hours and 48 minutes game time, 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 15 seconds real time. However, in this case, that's not actually the whole story. As I'm sure you've noticed, this video was nowhere close to being over just yet. So what gives? Well, you see, I wasn't completely satisfied with Pinsir's performance during this run. Or rather, to avoid deflecting responsibility, I wasn't completely satisfied with my performance during this run. This is because during this playthrough, I think I allowed myself to succumb to a fallacy. And that is that I was so preoccupied with getting Pinsir to level up, in accordance with what other solo run Pokemon would experience, that I forced it to waste inordinate amounts of time training when other Pokemon in the same circumstances wouldn't have. Now, to be fair, with most Pokemon, it is correct to train at least a little bit at a single gym or two, but with Pinsir, we took that plan to the extreme. So because of that, after completing this run, I thought, what if the reason Pinsir doesn't level up as fast as other Pokemon is because it doesn't need to? What if Pinsir is strong enough to get past all the key battles at a much lower level, thus making all that extra training completely superfluous? After all, in that run that we just completed, every boss battle in the entire game besides Agatha utilized the exact same strategy and were therefore extremely simple to get past. And not only that, the boss battles got easier as the game progressed, not harder. Well, needless to say, I wasn't satisfied leaving that question unanswered. So for the first time on this channel, we are going in with a second playthrough to compare the two strategies. The first strategy being training incessantly to keep Pinsir's level commensurate with other solo run Pokemon, and the second strategy being playing the entire game with minimum trainer battles. So using this method, how do we fare? Well, as we begin the second run, I should note two exceptions to the minimum trainer battles rule that I mentioned just now. First, we'll obviously need to train beyond the minimum to get past Brock, since we all know that Pinsir has no chance of defeating Brock otherwise. And second, we'll also fight any trainers that are guarding any essential items in the run such as TMs and rare candies. Well, during our pre-Brock training in Viridian Forest, having learned from the first run, we train up to level 15 from the get-go this time before attempting Brock, who is pretty much just a recapitulation of the previous run because Geodude is brought down with a few Vice Grips and we go into Onix in the green. Then during the battle, Onix uses not one but two bides this time, but luckily it goes for the second bide when it's too late, and we knock it out before it has time to retaliate. Then trekking through Mount Moon, we don't fight any trainers, but we do still one-shot all the wild encounters, since, as I mentioned before, that mode of training doesn't actually spend any more time than just running from the encounters anyway, provided that you can indeed outspeed and one-shot them, which Pinsir obviously does. And now to save time, we'll skip ahead to the portion of the game in which this run departs from the previous, which is at our arrival in Celadon City, because in the previous run, we trained in the Celadon Gym and then faced Erica. But now, since we're removing that training regimen from our routing, this time I thought it best to face against Rival 4 prior to Erica. So after completing the Celadon shopping, we fly over to Lavender Town to face against him. And in this battle, even though we're at a substantially lower level this time, each of the enemy Pokemon besides Gyarados present such a little threat that as long as we dodge Sand Attack from Pidgeot Pidgeotto and Hydro Pump from Gyarados, we should be in the clear. Well, in the battle, Pidgeotto does indeed use Sand Attack, but luckily it misses, and Gyarados just uses Dragon Rage, allowing us to sweep through the entire team with Body Slam. Then, after completing the Lavender Tower mission, that gives us access to Silphco and therefore access to the TM for Swords Dance. So, we immediately head there and teach Paul the move, after which we head back to Celadon City to face against Erica. And in the fight, I actually figured that setting up with Swords Dance would just give Victory Bell more time than necessary to inflict us with either sleep or poison. So instead, we just spam Body Slam the whole battle, which two-shots the entire team. Then against Koga, all we have to do is avoid Smokescreen from the initial coughing while we set up Swords Dance, which luckily we do because it just goes for a Smog and a Sludge, after which we one-shot the entire team except for Weezing thanks to a critical hit. But fortunately, Weezing's Retaliatory Sludge is not lethal thanks to our badge-boosted defense, allowing the second Body Slam to knock it out. And folks, it was definitely at this point that Pinsir's immense power in spite of its lower level became apparent, because defeating Koga on the first attempt, at as ridiculously low a level as 34, is absolutely unprecedented on this channel, with the second lowest level being held by the nigh unstoppable Hitmonlee who went in at level 36. But anyway, let's keep plowing forward to see if Pinsir can keep this absurd streak alive. So up next is Rival 5, and again, in this battle, Pidgeot will always spam Wing Attack due to its good AI. Well, in the first attempt, during the Swords Dance setup, Pidgeot spites our badge-boosted defense with a critical hit Wing Attack to get the knockout. But then in the second attempt, no such critical hit happens, allowing us to survive the Wing Attack onslaught and then outspeed and one-shot the entire team. Then against Blaine, because we're at a lower level, we unfortunately don't have access to Harden like we did last time, so we'll just have to cross our fingers that Swords Dance alone will be enough to take the victory. Well, against the initial Growlithe, we spam Swords Dance while it uses a couple Embers, the second of which inflicts a burn to cut our attack stat in half, just like last time. Well, fortunately on the third turn, Blaine just uses a Super Potion instead of another Ember, but now will 3 Swords Dance be enough to overcome the attack drop? Let's see. We go for Body Slam, and Growlithe is one-shot. Then Ponyta is one-shot. Then Rapidash is one-shot. And then yes, Arcanine is one-shot, even with Paul powering through such a devastating blow to its attack stat. Incredible. So then, with the Volcano Badge in hand to boost our special stat, let's see how we fare against Sabrina. Well, against the initial Kadabra, we outspeed and open with Swords Dance, and Kadabra retaliates with a massive critical hit Psybeam to bring us all the way into the red. And then, I'll be completely honest, I have absolutely no idea what I was thinking here when I go for another Swords Dance instead of another Body Slam. But I do, and of course Kadabra knocks us out in the next turn. The following attempt, however, goes much smoother because Kadabra for some reason decides to open with not 1 but 2 full health recovers, followed by a Psybeam which does very little thanks to our badge boosted special. And then, you guessed it, we outspeed and one-shot the entire team with Body Slam. And now, I'm not even going to bother narrating the next few battles, because I think you get the picture here. Giovanni goes exactly the same as last time, with the exception that Rhydon almost gets the KO with Stomp, but we still manage to survive, and then Rival 6 and Lorelei are both carbon copies of what they were before, meaning that we just set up the badge boost and then sweep. And now we're about to skip ahead to the Agatha fight, but before we do, I'll go ahead and show you the footage from the next couple battles while I take a moment to discuss one other reason that I decided to redo this run, which is yet another very awkward consequence of Pinsir being in the slow experience group. You see, most solo run Pokemon tend to make it to the Elite Four in the low to mid 50s, and most of the time, that's enough that each Elite Four battle will tend to provide enough experience to make it to the next level prior to attempting the next Elite Four member. However, Pinsir is different, because after feeding all but 2 rare candies to Paul before attempting Agatha, in the first run the Agatha battle came just shy of providing enough experience for the next level. And indeed, the Lance battle was the same scenario leading into the champion, functionally meaning that those final 2 rare candies that we used to prevent the mid-battle level up were only good for a very small handful of experience, rather than a full level's worth. But what if instead, we go into Agatha at a much lower level? That way we'll be able to get the maximum use from the last 2 rare candies. In that scenario, at what level would we in the game? And how different would it be from the previous run? Well, in my effort to find that out, before facing Lorelei, I only fed 5 of our 10 rare candies to Paul to bring it to level 48. That way, hopefully Lorelei and the Hiker will be responsible for 1 level each, and we can extract as much experience from the final 5 rare candies as possible. Well, it turns out that plan works beautifully, because Lorelei's Lapras brings us from level 48 to 49, and the Hiker's Machamp brings us from level 49 to 50. However, against Agatha, in this run she sets out to demonstrate exactly why people call it the Agatha Lottery, because this fight had by far the most resets of any battle so far, in this run or in the previous, simply because there's not really any minutia to this fight. It's really just a matter of landing on the right numbers on the roulette wheel, and then resetting if that doesn't happen. For example, against the Ghost you have to avoid Sleep and Confusion, against Golbat you have to avoid Confusion and Haze, against Arbok you have to avoid Paralysis from Glare, and against all the Pokemon you have to avoid too many direct attack attacking moves in the form of Nightshade and Wing Attack. And unfortunately, Pinsir simply does not wield the tools necessary to mitigate any of those scenarios, apart from just hoping to get lucky. But eventually, after about 6 minutes, we finally get to attempt number 9 in which everything goes right, allowing us to do nothing but spam Seismic Toss against the Ghosts and spam Body Slam against Golbat and Arbok, while they all make just barely enough poor decisions to allow us to survive in the red. But more importantly, level up from 50 to 51 heading into Lance, just as we had planned. And now prior to facing Lance, I considered feeding Paul my last 5 rare candies, but I decided against it because I didn't want to risk gaining too much experience and therefore avoiding the level up at the conclusion of the Lance battle leading into the champion. So instead, we go into Lance at a record low level of 51, the previous low record being held by Bellsprout at level 56. So to begin against Gyarados, we open by exchanging Harden for Leer, which is a net neutral exchange for our defense, but still badge boosts all our other stats twice over. Then, as we continue to spam Harden, Gyarados brings us to about half with Hydro Pump, then down to low yellow with Dragon Rage, then it misses a Hyper Beam. Then after a few Hardens we switch to Swords Dance, after which Gyarados lands a Hyper Beam which does very little thanks to our massively boosted defense. Then, taking advantage of Gyarados' recharge turn, we go for one final Swords Dance and then begin the sweep. Will it be enough? Let's see. Well, Gyarados is one-shot, then against the first Dragonair we get a critical hit to bring it to red, but then luckily Lance uses a Hyper Potion to give us another chance to avoid the crit, which we do on the next turn to knock it out. Then the second Dragonair is one-shot, then Body Slam deals just over half to Aerodactyl, who retaliates with a Bite that does almost nothing and then goes down on the next turn. Alright Dragonite, it's just you and me. Show us what you got. Well, the first Body Slam brings Dragonite to yellow, after which Dragonite goes for Agility, but in the following turn Agility is still not enough to outspeed us, and we take out the Dragonite with one final Body Slam at level 51. Absolutely incredible. And not only that, that victory causes us to level up from 51 to 52, meaning we can maximize our rare candy usage to bring Paul to level 57 going into the champion, which is ironically the exact same level as in the previous attempt. So it turns out that not only was all that extra training during the first run completely unnecessary to winning each subsequent battle, it was actually a hindrance in allowing Pinsir to progress through the game as naturally as possible. So now that we're at the same level as we were before, it would stand to reason that this champion battle will be just as easy as it was the last time, right? Well, there's only one way to find out. Against the initial Pidgeot, we of course set up with Harden followed by Swords Dance as usual, during which time Pidgeot only manages to land a couple very weak attacks, because every other turn was spent either using Mirror Move or missing with Sky Attack. So luckily after the setup is complete, we're at a respectable 2/3 health as we begin the sweep with Body Slam. So to start, Pidgeot goes down, Alakazam goes down, then Rhydon eventually goes down, then Gyarados goes down, then we do get a critical hit on the Arcanine to deal about half, allowing Arcanine to retaliate with an Ember that does almost nothing, again thanks to our badge boosted special, after which it goes down in the next turn. Then we do level up, but it doesn't matter because we outspeed the Venusaur regardless, and our 3 Swords Dance is still more than enough for one final Body Slam to knock out the Venusaur, making us for the second time champion of the Pokemon League. Results. This time around, Pinsir finished the game in 4 hours and 12 minutes game time, 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 28 seconds real time. However, in the interest of fairness, which run should we consider for the sake of the tier ranking? After all, the entire premise of this channel is that the tier list is based on a Pokemon's first attempt only, so should we completely discount the second result? Well, in this case, I actually don't think so. I think that if we had to choose one and only one, the second result is more representative of Pinsir's potential, because Pinsir's poor result in the first attempt was due to a grand overarching mistake on my part that impacted the entire run, which is the first time that that's really happened on this channel, at least to this extent. In other words, I was literally using Pinsir in a way that it was not intended to be used. But on the other hand, there is also the problem of the fact that in the second attempt, I implemented what I learned from the previous attempt to make the Brock split much faster, allowing me to completely remove a total of 3 resets. So because of that, I thought of what I deemed to be the fairest compromise, which is to add together the time of the first run from the beginning of the game until earning the Boulder Badge, which was 17 minutes and 47 seconds, plus the time of the second run from the Boulder Badge until the very end, which was 55 minutes and 11 seconds, for a total of 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 58 seconds. Conclusion. Pinsir, even more than I realized from the beginning, is an absolute steamroller, capable of utilizing literally the exact same combat strategy for virtually every major battle. Throughout the entire run, Pinsir yawned at every boss fight with 2 major exceptions, Brock and Agatha. In Brock's case, because he required ample training to prepare for, and in Agatha's case, because she was the one trainer against whom Pinsir's preferred mode of combat was ill-suited and therefore required more luck than usual. In fact, Pinsir would easily be an S-tier Pokemon if not for the existence of those two trainers. But, as it stands, given the relative abundance of time it took to surmount those two obstacles, and given Pinsir's strong base stats and offensively oriented move pool allowing it to breeze through everything else, Pinsir has earned its place at the highest end of the B tier for Pokemon Solo challenges in Gen 1. Thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure that was admittedly an enormous and welcome reprieve from the behemoth that was the Ditto run. As always, if you want to motivate me to continue making Pokemon content to bring us all together in our awesome Pokemon community, the best way to do that is to hit the like button and subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another video. And of course, feel free to support the channel on Patreon. You're all amazing. See you next time, everyone. Take care.